Okay, awesome. Well, good morning or afternoon or evening or wherever you're tuning in from. We're going to start Advent of Code, and I'm going to do it in Swift. I did a poll, and seems like people wanted Swift in Xcode as the what do you call it? Swift in Xcode. So we're going to go to Projects, Advent of Code. I made a 2022 folder, and there's nothing in here at the moment. So let's open up Xcode. Where's everyone tuning in from? All right, let's create a new project. We will make this a command line tool. I actually want to create a new workspace first. And I'm going to call this Advent of Code 2022. I'll put that in Projects and Advent of Code 2022. Okay, and then I want to add a new project in here. I'm not quite sure if I want one project per day or one project that just contains a bunch of targets, executable targets. Germany, hi from Munich. Wow, 2 people from Munich. What are the odds? How's the weather in Munich these days? All right, so I'll make a project called Day 1. I may change my mind on this later, but it's not too important now. Sure, we'll create a Git repository and we will add it to that workspace. Okay, so now if I open up the workspace, it has Day 1 in it, but I could add more days if I need to. Alternatively, I could go in and add a new target for each one. I'm not quite sure how I want to do it yet. Okay, so Advent of Code is a coding challenge that happens every year, and it's kind of fun. Like the challenges are, they start out really easy and they get progressively harder as the days go on. And depending on how much time I actually have available to work on it, like I probably won't get to the end, but I'll do my best to stream as often as I can to do a solution, and I will also do my best to post these to YouTube, the recordings to YouTube. Okay, so we are on day 1. Day 1 should be pretty simple. Santa's reindeer typically eat regular reindeer food, but they need a lot of magical energy to deliver presents on Christmas. For that, their favorite snack is a special type of star fruit that only grows deep in the jungle. The elves have brought you on their annual expedition to the grove where the fruit grows. To supply enough magical energy, the expedition needs to retrieve a minimum of 50 stars by December 25th. Although the elves assure you that the grove has plenty of fruit, you decide to grab any fruit you see along the way just in case. Collect the stars by solving puzzles. 2 puzzles will be made on each day in the Advent calendar. The second puzzle is unlocked when you complete the first. Each puzzle grants 1 star. So it sounds like I've got day 1, puzzle 1, puzzle 2. The jungle must be too overgrown and difficult to navigate in vehicles or access from the air. The elves' expedition traditionally goes on foot. As your boats approach land, the elves begin taking inventory of their supplies. One important consideration is food, in particular the number of calories each elf is carrying. That is your puzzle input. The elves take turns writing down the number of calories contained in the various meals, snacks, rations, etc. that they brought with them, 1 item per line. Each elf separates their own inventory from the previous elf's inventory, if any, by a blank line. For example, suppose the elves finish writing their items' calories and end up with the following list. So I'm going to copy this, and we're going to call this our test input, and I'll use a multi-line string literal to plop those in there. The list represents calories of the food carried by 5 elves. The first elf is carrying food with 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. So they're separated by a blank line. Total is 6,000. The second elf is carrying food with 4,000. Okay. In case the elves get hungry and need extra snacks, they need to know which elf to ask. They'd like to know how many calories are being carried by the elf carrying the most calories. In the example above, this is 24,000 carried by the fourth elf. Okay. Find the elf carrying the most calories, and we'll put it in here, and we have to use our puzzle input here. So the first step is to make sure that we can do this problem and get this answer, and then we'll get our puzzle input and paste in our answer there. All right. How's the font size? Is it, I suppose it's a little small. I'll make it bigger. I also made a green theme for my Xcode just to be a little festive. Okay, so we'll start off by splitting this into lines. And so then if we print that and run it so we can get our output. Weather is now in full German winter mode, cold and dreary. Wow. I'm in Houston, so the weather is pretty chilly today, but it's kind of up and down. Some days are really cold. Some days are, kind of warm, actually, even in December. Okay, so it looks like when we print our lines, it's skipping the blanks. I think there's an overload we can use for that. Split separator, max splits, omitting empty sequences. False. All right, so now we have empty sequences, and this will be useful because we need to know when to group into different elves. Now, in the past, I've sort of tried to. Last year was my first year doing this, and I started with the notion that maybe we were going to build upon the puzzles each time, and so I was creating like structs and things like that. And in hindsight, I don't think any of that was really useful, and so I'm going to start off with just pure basic programming and just get the puzzle done. And if we need to like clean it up or create abstractions for things, I'll do that. But for now, I think this is just data processing. So what I want to do is have elves and calories as a nested array of ints. And we'll start off empty. And then I can say for line in lines. And then I can say if elves and calories dot is empty, then we are on the first one and we should append a new array, empty array. And then if I'm reading an empty string, so if line that is empty, then I also want to start a new one. If the line is empty, I also need to go to the next one. But I think I can just say if let value equals int line. So then the blank lines will fail that anyway. So if we have an integer value, I will change that. If we have an integer value, then we need to append to the last element, and we know we have one, but I can't append this on because the array is immutable. So what I think we're going to have to do is get a mutable copy of that array. So we'll say items equals elves and calories dot last. Actually, and this also probably won't work because, well, let's see it. So then I can say items dot append value, and then at the end, if we print out elves and calories, making a copy of this array doesn't change the array in the collection, so I have to go into elves and calories and replace it. So I think I want to get the index, which will be elves and calories.count -1. This will be at that index. And then I will replace the item like that. Okay, so now I parsed everything into their groups. That looks good. We could have gone straight for just summing. I don't know if it's going to be useful in the next puzzle to have this data. I think this is probably going to be useful. Also, it's probably worth noting that I could have done this in reduce as well. If I did lines dot reduce into into this structure, then I get the accumulated value and the line, and then I can assign it like this, and then it's basically the same thing inside of here, except this is now, if the accumulated value is empty, then we're going to append the empty array. Same thing here. One thing super annoying about Xcode's Vim support is I can't, like, if I'm here and I want to change this word to ACC and hit escape, I can't repeat that. There's no repeat. It's super annoying. So I just have to type it again. Okay, so let me make sure I got the same results. And I did? Okay. So I don't know if there's a better way to do this, because I kind of want, like, you know, in programming in Rust, I feel like I have the ability to sort of see the lower level implications of doing things like this. Like in Swift, it's sort of nice and magical, where arrays are copy on write. So if I get var items and I don't do anything to it, then it's the same memory. But as soon as I mutate it, then it's new memory, and I have my own copy of the array. So I don't know if there's any way for me to sort of mutate in place without the copy, but probably doesn't matter at all. Also missing go to definition in Xcode Vim. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of things that are missing. Yeah, and there's a bunch of stuff. One thing I don't like is if I'm in visual selection mode and I hit Control U to go up, it doesn't stay in that mode. And then also if I'm in visual selection mode and I start bringing my selection up, it doesn't scroll up at all. Super annoying. I really wish I could just sit with the Xcode Vim team for like a day or two and just program. And every time I hit something that I feel like should work, I could be like, pause, record, whatever keystrokes I was doing. Would be amazing. You know, so that they would fix it. All right, so we need to know what the maximum sum is. So I'm going to create a function to, let's do it on an array where element is an int. Actually, we can do this on any numeric element. We could have a sum, and this would return element. And we can reduce 0 into plus. Okay. Once I have that, then I can say let sums equals elves and calories, map that to their individual sums. And then I want to print sums. Well, let's just say the max is sums.max. And sums.max is optional. Because if the sequence has no elements, it returns nil. I don't care about that, so I'm going to make it like that. Okay. So we get 24,000. That is the correct answer. So now we need to get our puzzle input. And I'm going to put this in a separate file. We'll call it day1.text. txt. All right. So now we have day1.text, and instead of the test input, I want to use the real input. How do I want to do this? I kind of want to move everything into like a struct. Day1 that has input, which is a string, and then func run gives me my output, and then I can take all this stuff. See, I tried to do it again. I tried to hit Control D while I was selecting, and I can't do that. So then I try and Shift V and select everything, and it doesn't scroll with me. All right, this extension can live just out here. Okay, so now we have day1 input run. This becomes input. All right, and then this is print day1 input is test input print day1.run. Let's make sure I get everything. Return the max. That needs to be a string. Okay, perfect. So now I can, instead of the test input, I'm going to move this down actually. I want to read a file. I'm going to make a quick function for that. This will read the file and crash the program if it doesn't exist. So we'll do file URL, file path, and I just want to use the name. I don't know if I need the path or not. Data will be try data contents of URL, and then return string data encoding UTF-8, and then crash if that fails. Okay, so our input is going to be read file day1.text. Okay, let's run it, and this crashes because it can't find the file. It is looking for it in the debug directory, so in the built products directory. So if I copy build phases, copy files, products directory. This looks different than iOS apps. Okay, day1.text should be copied. Sweet. Okay. Since Vim mode was released, there was no update on it. Really hope to see it will continue to make it better. Yeah, I filed quite a few radars and not a single one has been closed. And one of them is probably the easiest one. It's getting rid of the bell. Like, give me an option to get rid of the bell, because if I'm like holding down the K key and I go up to the top, I have to turn off my Mac sounds, like the system beeps and stuff like that, because otherwise it's like it just like brrr, it's just terrible. Super frustrating. Okay, we have our program input. Our output. Let's paste it in here. And that's right. You are 1 gold star collecting. Continue to part 2. Do I want this to be day 1, part 1? I'll just call this part 1. And then I'll have another one for part 2. Returns a string. Okay. By the time you calculate the answer to the elf's question, they've already realized that the elf carrying the most calories of food might eventually run out of snacks. To avoid this unacceptable situation, the elves would like to instead know the total calories carried by the top 3 elves carrying the most calories. That way, if one of those elves runs out of snacks, they still have 2 backups. In the example above, the top 3 elves are the 4th elf, the 3rd elf, and the 5th elf. The sum of the calories carried by these 3 elves is 45,000. So if we run... so this is going to be part 1. Is that part 1? Part 2? Part 2 is this one. All right. And let's switch back to our test input. And now so this is now a good way of reusing what we already have. So I think that in the init for input, we'll do self.input. Actually, maybe I'll just make a function process. Do I want to do that? No. I think I'll do this because I want to, like, I want this stuff to be non-optional. Because I basically need this elves and calories thing to be in here. So I can say elves and calories is an array of that and that. And then I can say this. Okay, that's probably fine. Okay, so at this point now, part 1 should still work. Part 2 should not. I'm going to return nothing. Let's run it, make sure we still get 24,000, and we do. And in part 2, we want to... elves and calories, do we want to sort and then take sorted by their sum and then take the top 3? We still want the sums. And then we can take sums dot sorted and then take the first 3. I'm reluctant to do this because let top 3 equals that, because what if you don't have enough? Return string top 3 dot sum. All right, so array slice of int has no member sum. I want this to work for array slices. I think collection is what I want. I never remember the hierarchy of the protocols for collections, but I think that's probably what I want. Okay, and if I run it now, the top 3 elves, this should be 45,000, so it's actually wrong. I think this may be reversed. Sorted dot reversed. Yeah. Okay. And I actually looked at the source code for these recently because I was curious, like what the performance implications were of them, and it's pretty interesting because it's just you have like a position and a direction, and it just flips them, so it's like not actually reversing anything in memory, which is not really surprising, but it's nice to like confirm that it's fast and you shouldn't have to worry about. The sorted is certainly going to be slow, but the reversed is going to be, constant time. Okay, let's go back to our real input and run it. And part 2 is 193,000. Actually, let me switch my console selection is way too bright. Can probably even go farther. Yeah, that's better. All right. Yeah, so copy that. 193,000. Oh, that's actually interesting. Yeah, it's fine here, and then when I go out here, it changes color. I don't know if there's a way for me to change that. All right. That's the right answer. You're 1 gold star collecting, closer to collecting star fruit. You've completed day 1. You can share this on Twitter or Mastodon. Check it out. Awesome. Okay, cool. Well, thanks for hanging out, everyone. This one was super easy. Hope you can join me tomorrow for the next one. And if I miss a day or two, I'll try to catch up with other streams. Like I might do 2 in one day or something like that. But all right, have a happy Thursday, and I'll see you next time.